We are right now at the Ångström laboratory at Uppsala University in Sweden, and beside me I have Bo Hoistad, who is leading the PrimeNet HadronPhysics2 activity of FP7. Bo, could you introduce yourself and say a little bit about what had led to forming this PrimeNet activity?
I have a background in intermediate energy nuclear physics, and I did experiments in pion production on a nuclei close to threshold at the Gustav Werner Institute in Uppsala. Those experiments were very exciting because they showed that there was a strong independence of the nuclear structure in those pion production experiments. And those experiments got a lot of attention worldwide, and since then I've been interested in pion physics in general. Many years later, when the Celsius cooler ring came into operation in Uppsala, we continued the pion production experiments, but this time we did it on the hadron scale rather than in the nuclear scale. So that means we were more interested in the hadron properties than any nuclear property. So those experiments contained pion production in few body reactions. And those experiments were then focused on the property of the hadron and also about symmetry properties also in the hadron. Later on, we were also focusing on the decay properties of the mesons, and for that purpose the big 4-pi detector VASA was being constructed. And that was done in collaboration with many of the particle physicists at our institute. So that meant that the nuclear physics group was more turned into hadron physics than the former nuclear structure physics. So in the beginning of year 2000, we had a nice program at the VASA detector for pion production and also for decay physics, in particular then for pions and for eta mesons. And at that time, the same type of profile in hadron physics was emerging at different laboratories in Europe. So we then felt that a good collaboration between those institutes and those laboratories would be a good idea. And at that time there was an initiative to submit an application to the I3HP, and we became a part of that application, forming a network called eta Mesonet. And that started in 2004. And that network was very successful, so we would like to continue with a network type activity beyond the eta Mesonet, which was finished around 2008. So we focused more on, physically more on eta prime physics, because eta prime and eta has a lot of things in common, in particular physics-wise. So eta prime network was then formed 2009, and we had our first meeting in Frascati 2009. And that network is now in operation, and it will end in the end of 2011 this year. And I should also say, fortunately, this network activity in this field will also have a continued life, because the next network, Mesonet, is recently being constructed under the leadership of my younger colleague Andrei Kupch. And so that is right now approved, and it will start 2012 by new networking for the next 3 years to go.
So, as a leader of the PrimeNet network, what would you say that is the most exciting aspects about this network?
Yes, the most exciting aspect is of course connected to hadron physics in general. So by hadron physics we want to explore the quark structure of the hadrons. In our case, in particular, the mesons. We want to explore how the different mesons interact. We also want to find out what brings about the mass they have. That is basically very poorly known. We should also remember that a hadron is the first complex system which emerged in nature. So there in the hadron we have a complex system consisting of a basic point like quarks. And this system is then forming more complex systems. So in nature we find, everything we find in nature is in fact at a different level part of a complex system. So that is very exciting to find out how this complexity emerges from the very beginning. And our way to find that out is to do detailed experiments in mesophysics, looking for decay properties, production properties, and symmetry properties in all those processes. And those experiments also will reflect one very interesting thing, namely they will have an impact on the quark masses, which is the quark masses are depending on what symmetry is prevailing in our system. So by looking at the symmetry properties, we have a constraint on the quark mass, in particular the up and down, well, I would say in our case it's the up and down quark. And that is very exciting to get a constraint on that.
So who are participating in this network?
Well, as I said in the beginning, the laboratories which are existing in Europe have a lot of institutes around them. So basically it is the institutes which are working at the different laboratories which are part of the network. And those laboratories are Daphne in Frascati, we have ELSA in Bonn, we have MAMI in Mainz, and we have COSI in Jülich. So those are the experimental participants. But we also have a big part of theory in the network. So we have theory institutes in, for example, well, in Uppsala, we have it in Lund, Barcelona, Valencia, Lisbon, and Jülich, and so on. So those are also part of the network. So all in all, we are about 30 institutes participating in PrimeNet. And the number of participants are around 100.
So what would you say are the benefits of such a network?
Well, as the name sort of explains, the network is a way of collaborating between different physicists. So the network serves the purpose of enhancing our collaboration in hadron physics. So we want to share experiences, we want to share ideas, we want to bounce our ideas between ourselves so that we can get a coherent approach to the most exciting problems. So in practice, that means that PrimeNet organizes workshops, we have exchange of visits, and we have also exchange of ideas in terms of individual contacts. So the network really brings about the hadron community in Europe in a very nice way. I should also say that this network has started new collaborations around or among the different institutes participating in the network.
Do you think that such an activity could also be beneficial for the society?
Yes, absolutely, but not in a direct way, but in an indirect way. The society invests a lot of money in basic research, and we have the task to perform that basic research in the most clever, in the most efficient way. To the extent then that we can get money to enhance our collaborative efforts, the contacts and so on, certainly we will do a better job. And the output will be higher in quality and in quantity. So in that sense, the society gets most out of their invested money in basic research.
So you have explained now the excitement about the primate activities. Now, on a more general ground, what would you say should motivate a young person to study science and do so in Europe?
Okay. Well, in general, I think that modern society requires knowledge, advanced knowledge, and also a lot of analytic thinking. So the younger generation has to invest in knowledge. Without knowledge, we cannot develop and prosper in such a way that mankind would like to have. This is a general remark. Now when it comes to science, of course, science is particular. Science is particular in that sense that it sort of promotes in a direct way achievements and development which is very necessary for our daily life. And in particular nowadays, when we have environmental problems and so on, we really rely on technical developments. Without technical developments, we will probably be deprived of many of the everyday conveniences, in addition to a clear prospect for the future. So science is part of our society. Science is also challenging for a young person. Science is sort of breaking new grounds into the unknown, and that is, of course, very satisfying. It gives a personal fulfilling to be part of that work, so that should be very attractive for young students. And then you asked about Europe. Certainly, Europe has a lot of facilities nowadays which are very exciting to work at. And so I would certainly, as a European, would certainly recommend that. Now, we shouldn't forget that, of course, you find other places also in the United States, China, Japan, and so on. So, so the student will have good opportunities, a nice future, if they devote the time to science. But of course, they shouldn't forget their human values also beyond science.
Så utöver detta, är det någonting mer du skulle vilja tillägga?
Ja, nu använder du svenska språket. Jag tror nog att svenska studenter i gemen är så pass duktiga i engelska. Svenskan är ju ändå ett ganska litet språk. Så att de kunde mycket väl följa vad som har sagts i den här intervjun. Men jag kan säga, investera i hög utbildning, bra utbildning, och det kommer ge en stor tillfredsställelse, en livslång stor tillfredsställelse.